We are recording. So again, welcome everybody, and welcome Ashley from Cox. We've got sort of some program protocols to go over today. First of all, I would encourage you, as questions come up, feel free to put those in the chat area. And we will have some time at the end of the session for questions and answers. Hopefully, the material that we're going to share with you today answers most of those questions, but you can either throw your questions into the chat section or toward the end, take yourself off mute and ask those questions personally. In the meantime, if you would keep yourself on mute, that would be great. We just want to reduce the background chatter for everybody on the call. So with that, I want to share out our slide deck today. Hopefully you all can see this. So just a couple of background comments, and then we'll get right into things. So the Everybody Learns initiative came out of the Office of the Governor, Lamont, and is intended to really close that digital divide across devices and connectivity to support remote and blended learning. And so there's a press release that we sent out today, 80,000 devices, approximately 60,000 connections that we're making. And we really have depended on our strong partnerships with folks from Cox and other carriers to make this happen. So we're really happy about this. Today's session is really intended to give you sort of the mechanics of how to engage families, how to move forward with getting students connected. So we'll be talking about providing you with some contact information for the folks on the Cox side, as well as who families should contact if they have questions. We'll be talking through the serviceability process, which is going to have a good amount of detail in it. So please put on your thinking caps and listen closely. Important next steps for you as district leaders to be looking at. Then we will be looking at handoff to families so that they can sort of pursue fulfillment on their end and sort of close the final steps in connecting. And then some FAQs that we put together that hopefully address the questions that you may have. But as I said before, feel free to drop those questions in the chat section. I mentioned Ashley Perkins from Cox is here to walk through most of the presentation, but your district program lead will be Kelly Birmingham. And I want to be clear here, the design of this whole program is really meant to have, you as district leaders, you can reach out to Kelly with questions about the program. Hopefully all this is really clear, but we do not want families to be reaching out to Kelly directly. We would rather have them either contacting Cox directly with any technical support issues once they get set up, or if they have general questions to be reaching out to you as the district lead. We're trying to sort of keep that volume of questioning from families to a minimum if we can. Understanding that they're anxious about connections and wanting to get their kids set up, but that's why we're here today. So with that, I want to give a brief overview of sort of the program and the scope, talk at a high level about serviceability, then hand things over to Ashley. High level here, what the state has brokered with Cox is allowing for families to connect through a broadband internet connection at home. That's 25 megs down, 3 megs up, the definition of broadband. They will get a wireless router installed in their homes, so they'll be able to connect wirelessly. May seem like an obvious comment, but could everybody please mute themselves? There's some background chatter, please. Thank you. Okay. Um, Also wanted to mention, yeah, there's a wireless router that's installed, so no Ethernet cable is necessary for connecting at home. And then importantly, students who get set up from with home accounts will be able to connect via any Cox hotspot that they can find in their community. So both in-house and outside of the house, there will be a connection available. So we'll talk a little bit more about eligibility later, but we really want to focus on obviously families that are living in Cox serviceable towns. And so we'll be looking at sort of the data collection and vetting of those addresses shortly, which actually leads me to the next slide. Um, so and again, this is high level. Ashley will sort of take it from here. But what we're asking for districts to provide is the list of students that they're not sure already have a connection, and that may seem like a confusing statement. But what we're after here is casting a wide net. We know that you have provided estimates to surveys that Ajit and I have shared out and even most recently in July provided estimates. But we also know that students come into districts and they leave, situations change. So what we're asking for in the next steps as you provide address level information is a list of students that you aren't certain already have a connection. So this would be, take all of your students and then subtract out the ones, for example, that have already received Khajiit or other cellular hotspots, so you know they're connected that way, or families that you are certain already have a connection. So really, we're looking at that list of students that you know absolutely need a connection or you're not sure. We'd rather cast that wider net, especially with the not sure category, and we can run those through and make sure that that if they're current customers, that will identify them, and if they're not, then we can get them connected. So that's really the intent of this. Um, what we'll ask you as district leaders to provide is address, or I should say, student level data, and the sort of template for this will be asking for your district a sort of scrambled or program specific student ID. So to be clear, do not put in the SACID or something that is personally identifiable in this data import. We're asking for you to create some kind of a scrambled ID that you can decode on your end, but that Cox won't have any way of knowing what that student is. Um, and also the first street address, 123 Main Street, for example, address 2, which is optional. That could be an apartment number, something like that. The street, city, town, and zip. Um, and then following this, Cox will sort of do a run and identify serviceable addresses, um, and then provide that back to you. You can then coordinate notifications to families to let them know that they are eligible, that they're at a serviceable address, and then sort of move forward with fulfillment. That's the sort of 40,000-foot view of the next steps. But Ashley has some great tools. Cox has developed some great tools to walk you through this. So at this point, I want to hand things over to Ashley, and Ashley, I made you a presenter that role. So I don't know if you can sort of grab controls and navigate from here.
I doesn't look like I can actually grab the presentation itself. Okay. So I may have to ask for a Vanna assist on this one, if you don't mind.
That is, well, I just made you host. So try again. And if that works for you, great. And if not, I will be happy to move the slides forward. Any luck there?
Not so far.
Okay. All right. Well, then I am happy to advance slides.
Okay. Great. Doug, thanks for having us on today. Cox really looks forward to helping you all get your students online, which we know is so important. It's important all the time, but it's certainly been realized more important in the last few months. So let's walk you through kind of the first pieces of this. So as Doug mentioned, we're interested in maintaining the privacy that's required to these students. And so we've put together a process that keeps the identity of the student on your side of the fence and not on ours. And we are only interested in address level information. So we will be providing you an address worksheet for you to submit your addresses as Doug had outlined, along with, if you have it, free or reduced lunch information. You will submit those to Kelly Birmingham, who was on the first slide and will be on the last slide as well. You will let Kelly know that that you want to submit an address list, and he will send you a private SharePoint location for you to upload that list to. Once you upload that list, Kelly on our side will take that and he will sort through those addresses and return to you in that same SharePoint site a couple of pieces of information. One will be if that address is a current Connect to Compete customer, which is basically our low-cost internet solution. If they are a current Cox customer of internet in another speed, and then also return to you not a current Cox customer and in our system footprint, so available to get Cox services, or outside of our system footprint, not available to get Cox services.
And Ashley, sorry to interrupt. I just advanced one slide, so we're kind of under this on the screen now. We're under that sort of serviceability, that second step here in the process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So once you get that back, then you are able to identify the students that you desire to have internet service through the program that the state has negotiated with us. Then that gets sent back to Kelly on our side, and we load that into the system. At that point, so again, all of that is secure between the school and our CARES Act coordinator, and that is it. So we load that into the system, and then the school, you all, begins letting the students and families know that this is available to them. And I will walk through some of the tools that we have at your disposal in a few minutes, but then you all will begin that notification to those families. They will go online to this CARES Act portal, and basically once they put in their address, that information will be served up to them as to what their selections could be. They move through that, accept the fact that they are going to be getting a piece of equipment, and that once the state ends their funding of the program, whenever that should be, that they are responsible for the bill or cancellation of the service after that. And then once they go through that process, we will drop ship a self-install kit, which is the modem, and some really good instructions for how to install it. And if they have technical needs, they can call just like any residential customer to our technical care center. And we also encourage the schools to be a next layer of help should they need it. And then at that point, they can be connected and move forward as you all wish to see that done. At the end of the month, you will get a reconciled list of addresses that you just need to verify and make sure that the people that are on there or the addresses that are on there are the correct addresses and or any changes that need to be made. Doug, you want to jump back one step for me? Sorry. Yep. So next step for us is to actually provide an address management tool, and that should be coming in phase 2, which is in a couple of weeks. So you'll actually have a live ability to add and change students. We know that student families move in and out of districts all the time. So this will allow you some more frequency of communication with us rather than just uploading spreadsheets, and that will be all secure as well. Okay. maybe down to slide 9, Doug, sorry. Or 8, yeah, 8's fine. We do have multiple tools for you to use. We have pre-configured letters that you can send out. We have really a how to do better on internet access and best practices. We know that students and families are competing to a certain extent on who's working from home and who's trying to do school online. And so there's kind of an internet best practices sheet that we think is very beneficial for families, as well as what can you do with a 25x3 and what does that actually mean to your student and what they're able to do. So these are 2 documents in an infographic that we're happy to provide to each one of the schools, and you can use at your leisure. And then again, we also have some pre-configured email templates and letters that you can use to let your students and families know what's coming. All right. What questions, does anyone have any questions specifically? And I'm checking the chat just to make sure that I'm paying attention. But your students will, oh, is this a repeating monthly list of eligibility? So you will get the first list after you send it in of those that have signed up and you are wanting to provide services to. And each month thereafter, you will get a similar list with changes as you have made them. So let's say that Johnny's family moves into your system and needs to be provided internet. You add Johnny's address to the list, send it back over to us. We make sure that that address shows eligibility. So when Johnny's family goes online, then they can get the service that you've requested for them, and their address should show up again that month as being an addition. Are we limited to the number of families who expressed a need last year? Doug, I would throw that at you. I don't believe so.
No, that's why at the beginning, and I just want to reiterate, you provided estimates and probably several estimates to date. At this point, as we're down to looking at, the specific carrier of Cox, we want an updated specific address level list of those kids that you believe will need a connection. So, to be really clear, you've probably some of the districts have already received Khajiit hotspots. That takes those kids sort of off the list. You may be aware of certain families that have entered into hardship and they're now can't afford internet. Add those to the list, as well as all the other families that need a connection. So as of this date, to the best of your ability, that's where we want that list of students that need a Cox connection. We're really casting a wide net here, but we also we want you to do some reconnaissance and give us as best most accurate data that you possibly can. So we're not also looking at a bunch of duplicates.
Great. So the experience that your student families will see after you have told us that they are eligible or desired to receive internet service is basically our Connect to Compete web experience. So they will go on, the first step they will do is to put in their address. And again, that address will, when we've loaded it up, we'll tell them exactly what the schools and the state have agreed to take care of for them. And it will offer that to them. They can either apply as a Connect to Compete student family, which means that they're eligible for free or reduced lunch or FERPA I've just gone brown, other government funding out there. And so they will take that path. If they are not eligible for our Connect to Compete program, then they will fall into a 25x3 that is at a negotiated rate with the state of Connecticut. So we can get them online either way, and it will offer that up to them on that website.
So actually, that's a good point of clarification. When districts are providing that upload of addresses to search for serviceability, uh, there shouldn't be a need for those lists to include uh, sort of a national school lunch program or other eligibility value, right? They're just uploading addresses at this point, correct?
Yeah, not if they upload them with the lunch eligibility initially, we can automatically system. So it's easier for the families if they are already identified as free or reduced lunch, because that is, it will automatically give them the Connect to Compete offer. If not, then they'll need to send us some eligibility documentation. So just as an ease for the student and families, if you go ahead and select them as free or reduced lunch appropriately by address, then it can move forward much faster, but it will work both ways.
Good.
All right. And I think there's one more. Yeah, is there one more? No, that's it. Um, yeah, then there's the parent portal. So this is really where the parents will see the information as outlined. So address input for eligibility, right? We just mentioned that everything is driven by an address. Then the selection of either Connect to Compete or the other 25x3 opportunity, and then a sign up and opt in. So basically, again, it is an agreement with Cox and the end user that says, we're going to be shipping you the piece parts to install for internet connectivity. You know, you're getting these. It says that at the end of the payment by the state of Connecticut, the bill will be theirs, and then they would need to make some effort at that point, either to continue paying it or to disconnect from us at that point. So they're basically signing up and opting in. All right.
Any questions about the process so far? We can cover, we've got a couple of FAQs here, but there may be others that that come up, but these are the ones that we tried to think ahead of. In putting together an agreement with Cox, we wanted to make sure that if families had entered into a hardship, inability to pay their bill, that we would still have the ability to connect them through this program. So, you know, this is not intended to be the state of Connecticut taking care of every family's needs, whether they can afford it or not, but really trying to address situations where, for example, if you know, you know, parents lose their jobs, which is happening across the entire country, happening across the world, the kids shouldn't have to suffer for that. So for, you know, for some hardship reason, the family's unable to pay their bill, that we would, you know, that we would sort of back them up and cover that. So, you know, this isn't something that we sort of want to shout from the mountaintops, but you as district leaders should know this, that if districts or if families are coming into and experiencing some hardships, we want to make sure that those kids don't get disconnected. So, so keep that in mind. Um, and then, you know, just a note on the student data. You know, we would encourage you, please do not include any student names or SACID in the address verification. Again, just those addresses with a scrambled student ID that you create and can decode. That'll help keep the student ID uh, or keep the student information as confidential as possible. And that's it for the sort of our FAQs. I do see in the chat section that Tom reached out saying, oh, so let me navigate back to this sort of workflow here. So the request on the data input. So we're looking at the far left-hand side of the screen or of the slide that we're looking at right now, that spreadsheet import.
Mhm.
One row per address. Yeah, okay, so the question is, how do you address multiple students at the same address? Um, what we would like to do ideally would be, and Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we'd like to see um, one row per student as opposed to one row per address. And the reason for this is you may have only one student that needs a connection at a certain address, but we may have, it could have 7 or 8 students at a certain address. So we'd like to see one row per student, even if you're duplicating addresses. That's my preference, and that way we're going to have a sense of, are we connecting so many students underneath the same roof that we may want to think about a faster connection, and we would address those sort of case by case. But having one row per student will allow us to identify how many students are getting connected per address. So let me pause there. Ashley, I think that aligns with what we had talked about, but any comments there?
No, you're absolutely right. And we will send it back as a duplicate address as well when we send you your first results back. So they'll be easy to identify as well, and we can make some decisions going forward from there.
When you look at this process on the screen and the data import, one thing we sort of glossed over is we do need to ask you to get this information in by the end of the week if possible. Um, I know everybody is extremely busy with the start of school, but we're hoping that this process of the district side is really just a pull from your student information system, minus the kids that are already connected. If there is a problem with getting your data over to Kelly, um, then then let us know. But we're really hoping that if we can get the data to Cox by the end of this week, then that will enable them to start turning around fulfillment and actually get families connected as soon as possible. So hopefully you appreciate that. It's another ask for you as district leaders, but this is a critical step and a very timely step to make sure that we can move forward with fulfillment. Um, want to encourage um, want to encourage any other questions that might come up, and while we're sort of waiting for any questions that might come up, whether through chat or take yourself off mute and chime in. On the screen again is contact information for Kelly, who's going to be helping you as district leaders with this program. And then importantly, again, I want to reiterate, families should not be contacting Kelly directly, that he's really your point of contact. Families, once they get set up and get going, they use the normal channels of support for any technical or account issues that might come up. So I
And just
think
as an addition, their accounts will be noted appropriately as being through this program. So when they call in for technical support, our teams will be able to help them appropriately. They'll know what they're dealing with.
are there any other questions? As I said, feel free to take yourself off mute and chime in or use the chat window. Um, so here's one from Jim. For districts that have both hotspots and Cox cable, is there a priority which service is used first, or does the district decide which is better for the family? Okay. Um, so um, to be clear, when it comes to the Everybody Learns initiative, we've already asked, and hopefully this addresses your question, Jim, and feel free to unmute and jump on if you'd like, but um, the the district requests for the hotspots through Khajiit, those requests have already gone through. If I'm not mistaken, all those units are either shipped or arrived at this point. I know that they've all at least shipped. And so that sort of order process for the cellular hotspots is over for now. So I would say that any students that you don't that you have either full knowledge of or suspicion they are not connected to the internet, I would encourage you to add them to your list so that we can get them connected. If for some reason they are already Cox customers, that'll come up. But I'd rather have those sort of those false negatives than to not include certain students that may be offline. So does that answer your question, Jim? Um, I will take silence as yes, but feel free to jump on or use the chat if I haven't made myself clear. All right, got the yes from Jim. Okay, so that good question from Craig, and I'm just going to read it out. So, do districts need to survey families to determine if they already have service um, with Cox? So, um, I don't want to start an entire sort of process, additional process for you. I would say that for your best understanding as of today, which students still don't have an internet connection and which students do. And you're going to know that either by you've got a list of students that you gave Khajiit hotspots out to, or maybe you worked with another cellular provider. That's one category that you shouldn't be sending to Cox for vetting because you know they're connected. And depending on your internal process, if you already know that certain kids are logging in, they're connected, teachers have contacted the families, and you know that those kids are already online, don't include them because they already have a connection. For all other kids, and again, this is going to vary from district to district, if you have a question about your students and whether they're connected or not, add them to the list. I would rather you add more students that we can filter out as already connected than not, if that makes sense. So cast that wide net. We're not looking for you to recreate a survey and do a massive data collection in the next 3 days. It's really just asking you to the best of your ability to give a list of students that you either don't know whether they're connected or whether you're certain they're not connected. So pulling out all the certainly connecteds, right? Don't send those all the ones that you know need a connection or may need a connection. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, good. Got the thumbs up from Craig on that one. Sorry, and this is nuanced and it may be a little confusing. Hopefully you get the philosophy. We want to make sure that we're not missing any students. So the best of your ability, however that comes out, you know, send those addresses to Cox through the SharePoint portal that Kelly will give you access to.
Yeah, good point, Doug, in that, if you don't know, go ahead and send the address because we can tell you if they're connected with us already and if they're in footprint, which, if they're in footprint and aren't connected, then you get to sort of make a bifurcation at that point and decide if you already know that they have connectivity or you want to go ahead and try.
So a question came up, if you have a family with a Khajiit hotspot, but they're in a bad cell area. Yeah, it's a good one. I would say, and sorry to our Cox friends for looking at another part of this program that doesn't directly influence you or include you, but I would say for folks who've gotten Khajiit hotspots and the cell service is not strong, I would want to look at getting another carrier. But to answer your question, add them to the list for Cox for now. I wouldn't want to miss them, but but we might want to look at for those students who've received Khajiits and the cell service isn't great. Khajiit can swap out SIM cards with another carrier. So, say for example, you had a Verizon hotspot and the service wasn't great, Khajiit can work directly with the family to swap out the SIM card and get them, instead of Verizon, T-Mobile, or instead of T-Mobile, Verizon, whatever. It's sort of carrier agnostic. So if for some good reason you've given that student a hotspot, like they might have dual custody, they're mobile or housing insecurity situation, and hotspot works really well for them for that situation. We don't necessarily want to give up on that solution. A different carrier may be a better solution for them. But if we've exhausted those options, then then looking at cable broadband would make sense. So to be crystal clear, add that student to the list, and once you get back the serviceability report, perhaps at that point you have done some troubleshooting with the Khajiit hotspot and have identified whether that's going to work for them or not. But don't preclude them from the list for now. We'd rather have both options open. Hopefully that answers your question, Chris. Great. Are there any other questions from folks who are online?
Hey, Doug, while we're waiting, I just want to make sure that I introduce the local leadership that's on the call from Cox, which is Ross Nelson, who's the vice president for the Northeast, and Stephen Hughes, who's the director of sales for Cox Business, who I think he and his team are probably lockstep with your school systems as well. So, but they're here to support as well locally. So for those of you that work with the Cox Business team in your area, I know you know your account manager and so forth, but we're always your first line of defense. So everything that you need in that direction, they can always get in touch with myself or with Kelly Birmingham as well. So, and on that other front, Doug, we definitely understand that it's going to take a village to get all the students in all of the different locations with all of the different situations connected. And we're just happy to be part of the solution.
Yeah. Ashley, thank you for that. I apologize for getting in late. It should have been me that was introducing you and thanking you for all that you've done. And Doug, thank you as well. This has just been a tremendous effort to get the internet to these students and satisfy everyone's learning initiative. So thank you for all your hard work. We sincerely appreciate it. And to the districts, we're here to help, and anything we can do, we're more than happy to.
Well, us as well. Us as well. I'm going to, when we finish up, if there are no other questions from our attendees, I will be, as soon as this presentation is rendered as a video, I'll be sending that out to our districts, as well as the slides that you see here. There's a great toolkit that Cox has put together, those resources for families, so we'll get those posted as well. And then, and I think that wraps. Oh, and I think we've got the data import template as well that will stage that. So I'll get those out as soon as the video recording is rendered. But for the time being, if you're ready to go and all of your questions are answered, you can reach out to Kelly today and get the process moving. Terrific. So Ashley, Ross, Steve, thanks for being here today, and thank you all at the district level for joining us today. We know that your jobs are always challenging, and they're especially challenging this year, this fall. So thank you for all you're doing. Let's get those kids connected, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.